Good morning.
A very good morning to you. We're talking actually about Abydos and Dendera, and you wanted to start a little bit. Actually, let's start by recapping because this is part of a long series that we've been doing every Wednesday. Can you tell us a little bit, a recap, and then tell us a little bit more about Abydos?
So, good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Shireen. So, delighted to be with you today. And so, we started this series for almost, that is like number 8 now, which is we covering the same topic, which is Egyptian treasures or like hidden treasures of Egypt. So we classified Egypt according to geographical order, from the north to the south to the east to the west, and I think that we are only 1 or 2 interviews from finalizing our episode. So the last time we talked about the Nile Valley, and all over the Nile, the 2 banks of the Nile River called the Nile Valley, but when I said the Nile Valley, I was talking more specific about the area between Cairo and Luxor. So, and the reason why I choose this area together and called it the Nile Valley between Cairo and Luxor, because Luxor is known for its own. That's when you mention Luxor, it's very well known. So when you mention Aswan, it's very well known as well. So when you mention the Delta, the Eastern Desert, the Western Desert, but this area, even it is a very large area of the Nile Valley of Egypt, and very rich with history and monuments, because as you know that the ancient Egyptians, they used to live along the Nile Valley, mainly along the Nile Valley, and the population is spread all over the Nile Valley from the north Mediterranean Sea and the Delta all the way to the Egyptian borders by the Nubian in the south. So this particular area unfortunately is not receiving much attention from the tour planner. So when I talk about this area, I will talk about Bani Hassan in Minya and Tun al-Gabal, Abydos and Dendera. So in the last, in like 2 weeks ago, in my previous interview, I talked about Tun al-Gabal, I talked about Bani Hassan, and I talked about Minya as well. And these 3 sites had a great importance in Egyptian history, and especially Tell Amarna, it has one of the most preserved ancient Egyptian cities. So one of the very interesting thing about the ancient Egyptian archaeological sites, it is mostly tombs and temples today.
Right.
So tombs dedicated to the dead pharaohs or noble men or rich people, or temples dedicated like houses for gods. It was built to last, but hardly to find any monuments dates back to the daily life, dates back to show you how the ancient Egyptians used to live, like their houses, even the king palaces, is hardly any remaining. And that's why Tell al-Amarna or Minya stands in that, because that was a new city built by Akhenaten, and he had a very, very ambitious plan with his wife Nefertiti and their 6 daughters, one son, which is Tutankhamun, by the way, so to move there and to rule Egypt from there.
Right.
And because of very detailed and a very serious debates happens and political debates happens, so the whole area has been abandoned shortly after the king's death, or as nation, nobody knows so far, and they moved back to Luxor, and they left the city cursed,
Right.
which means that nobody was allowed to live in this part anymore. And that was a good thing, because that's how it was preserved. But on the other hand, they use it as a quarry for taking the stones. But at least they left the foundations and some of the like leftover from like buildings, and that helps us to rebuild the city again, which is an ongoing process today. Right. So we moved on to Tun al-Gabal, and that was a beautiful and very important site. It's not that big, but it had a very interesting community, a mixed community, mainly Greeks. But Greeks became Egyptologized and adapted the ancient Egyptian religion, culture, and built temples dedicated to the ancient Egyptian gods. And even high priest, he was a Greek, but named himself an Egyptian name, and he built himself a tomb in the Egyptian style. And then today I would like to focus more on Abydos and then Dendera in our way to Luxor. So we are doing that in a trip, like following the Nile River from the north to the south. So in Abydos in ancient Egypt, it was like Mecca for Muslims today. This is like Jerusalem, the Holy Land for Christians and Jews, and also for Muslims today. Abydos, that was the pilgrim spot for every Egyptian. They need to do at least one visit in their lifetime to Abydos. Abydos, if they couldn't, so at least a tablet carry their names will be taken there if they can afford that. So Abydos is the gateway to the afterlife for the ancient Egyptians, so that's where the soul or their spirits or their bow will go across the horizon and go to the afterlife, to the heaven across from Abydos. Abydos is the burial place of the early ancient Egyptian kings, and no wonder if this is a shortcut to the heaven. So the early kings of Dynasty 1, Dynasty 2, they like to be buried there, and some of the kings of the other dynasties as well, they kept traditional tombs, symbolic tombs, to be buried, to be there as well. Abydos has one of the most important temples in Egypt from religious point of view. So in ancient Egypt, they believe in the afterlife, and that's one of the very important reasons why they were civilized, and they were working hard in their life, believing in the good ethics in life, because they believe in this good ethics will take them to the afterlife, and that's one of the very important incentives in the ancient Egyptian civilization. So there was, to go to the afterlife, they have to go through a court, and this court is judged by a god. His name is Osiris. Osiris' tomb and temple is in Abydos. And that means that Abydos was a pilgrim spot, not only because of that is a gate to the afterlife, because they have to go and worship the god, which is he will make a judge on them, who will go to the afterlife and who will vanish by an amham, not deserve to go to the afterlife. So
was there anything special about Abydos that it was chosen as the gateway to the afterlife?
That's a very good question, actually. So in Abydos, the topography of Abydos, and there is in the Egyptians, they believe in the earth is flat, and they believe in there is two mountains, and the sun god Ra rise and sets between these two mountains. And that interesting thing, when you go to Abydos, you see that is represented in reality, which is you see a plain land, and you see two mountains, and the make actually the ancient Egyptian symbol of Akhet, which is they are like natural design, by the way, and the sun sets in between of them, and that's why the ancient Egyptians, they believe that that should be the place where the sun disappears, and that should be the gate to the afterlife. That's the importance of Abydos. Now think about that, for throughout the whole ancient Egyptian history.
So it has a religious importance, in your opinion?
Definitely. And that is interpreted into buildings and construction there. So there is a tremendous number of tablets has been erected by the ancient Egyptian people, individuals, has been erected in the valley of Abydos. The problem that, all of these tablets has been translocated and has been stolen from Egypt in the 18th century, 19th century by European travelers, and we cannot even connect them with the location where it was found. But we still have a magnificent complex of early dynastic period tombs and pre-dynastic
So, sir, can you tell us more about the inscriptions that are drawn on some of the temples of Dendera and Abydos?
So for Abydos now we have the temple of Osiris, which is actually it is underground, by the way, and on the top of the temple of Osiris there is another temple built dedicated to different gods and goddess, built by the king Seti the first from the 19th dynasty. That is nearly 3,300 years ago, which is like 1,300 years or 1,400 years newer than the temple of Osiris, which is down below, and that is the main attraction in Abydos now. That's what people actually going and visit. So Abydos temple, so when I say Abydos temple now, mainly I refer to this one. It is the biggest one and the most preserved one there. It is built by Seti, has been modified by Ramses II, which is his son in the 19th dynasty, and it has two different types of decoration. So the decoration of Seti, the first, which is considered like the ideal art, the best example of Egyptian art, classical art. And we have also the alternation made by Ramses II, which is there is a debate of that was a good art compared to the other one or not. So that is the main attraction in Abydos now. So Abydos is reached now, so Abydos is receiving more attention by tour operators than Minya and Beni Hassan, because it can be reached from Luxor in a day trip. from Luxor.
Right.
They can travel from south to north to visit Abydos and Dendera and back to Luxor again, and that's why Abydos receive more attention. And
It still carries the name of Abydos now, or this name has changed?
So it's still the name
called Abydos till now.
It's still the name of still the name of the town and the name of
still carries the ancient name.
It still carries the ancient name. There is a modern name actually for the village, which I think that it's called Al-Arab al-Madfuna.
Yes.
I think it is Al-Arab al-Madfuna, but yes, it's still, when you say Abydos, it's very well known that in the ancient Egyptian text is Abydos, not Abydos, and that has been changed by the Greeks by adding the theta letter at the end of the word. So.
And the beauty of it is that it's actually been very well preserved. Am I correct?
It's the temple of of Seti is very well preserved. So the disadvantage, or the thing, that in every episode we try to give some idea of about how to develop this area. So for a very long time we used to suffer actually from not having a proper accommodation there. There are some local guest houses there, which is built by local people, that was good actually for staying the night. Especially that there was lots of things to see there. But recently there is another hotel has been built, which is make it actually better, and I wish that there is better facilities to be introduced as well there, so people they can spend the night there. So moving on to...
Yes, can we please move to Dendera?
Okay.
And its historical importance.
Yes, so Dendera is another beautiful temple, and that is the best expression when it talks about this temple.
Where it is located?
So it will be southern Abydos, north of Luxor, more specific in the governorate of Qina. That will be nearly an hour and a half driving from Luxor, and that's why it received most of its visitors, if not all of their visitors, those who are touring Luxor already, and they make a trip to Dendera and back to Luxor, or Dendera and Abydos and back to Luxor. So in Dendera, it is a beautiful temple simply because it was dedicated to a beautiful goddess called the goddess Hatfor, the goddess of beauty and motherhood in ancient Egypt. Right. So the temple is very well preserved because it's a new one compared to the other temples built by the ancient Egyptians. When I say new one, is more than 2,000 years old, by the way. So there is a debate about who built it. It was built by the ancient Egyptians or built by the Greeks who was ruling Egypt in that time when the temple was built.
Greeks were living in this area for a long time?
So the Greeks invaded Egypt starting by Alexander, and they were controlling Egypt for 300 years. And they attracted many Greeks, they came and became like expats living in Egypt at that time, mainly for economical reasons. So they can build a strong economy, and they can trade and make riches. So what happened with the Greeks made to Egypt, they realized that the best way to attract the attention of the Egyptians is to show respect to their own religion. And also that is the best way to brainwash the people and be able to control the people. If the Greek king will introduce himself as a pharaoh, with the title of the pharaohs, believing in the ancient Egyptian gods, and the most important, the human representation of the ancient Egyptian god on earth, that's how he will be able to control the Egyptians.
Right.
And that's a very big debate. We can talk about in a different episode, but what happened in that particular period, that there is the temple, the ancient Egyptian temple is still ongoing, because that's how they use these temples to control the people. So the debate is if that is built by money paid by the Greeks, or it was built by Egyptian money. So I will go for a second one, and I have very strong evidence. Rosetta Stone.
Right.
Rosetta Stone, it tells a story, dates back to the King Ptolemy V. And the story is a thanking letter from the ancient Egyptian priests in that particular year for exempting the ancient Egyptian temples from paying the annual taxations. There is a hidden message here that the ancient Egyptian temples used to pay taxes.
Right.
And for some reason in that particular year, because there was not enough water, like floods in the river, there was like almost a famine, the temples couldn't raise much funds, the king exempted them from paying the taxation. That's completely the opposite than the rule of the native ancient Egyptian kings during Old, Middle, New Kingdom. And that's why myself I believe that these temples is built by ancient Egyptian priests and people only during the rules of the Greeks. So the reason why this temple is very beautiful and very well preserved, because it's a new one compared to the other, as I mentioned, and also it has the most preserved ceiling decoration.
Right.
You know, so normally actually visitors and guides as well, you know, their neck hurts after visiting the temple, because when for almost an hour more or less they keep looking, they keep like staring at the ceilings decoration, which is extremely beautiful, the most preserved, and it explains the Egyptian zodiac, which is the what's called the beginning or the prototype of zodiacs, which is used by Persians and then Greeks and Romans. After that, the prototype is actually there, and unfortunately has been taken from
So
the
this
temple.
temple focuses only on zodiac?
So there is the zodiac is a big subject when it comes to the ancient Egyptian. So it tells how the map of the heaven, that is the zodiac for the ancient Egyptians, and that is within the ceilings. The map of the heaven, the sky and the stars and all that. That was also very well introduced in Dendera temple, and it's with the beautiful decoration, is very well preserved, very rich, and there is a very nice view. Actually, they are the only temple which is, I know, that you can go up the stairs and go on the rooftop of the temple, where you can have a very good view overlooking the valley from there. So it is not far away from Luxor.
So as you said, it's a one-day trip for tourists if they want to go visit Dendera and Abydos.
Thanks for this question, because that's how we can put like that in like the practicality of what you are talking about, how to visit Dendera and Abydos. So the most common way now is a day trip, a short visit from Luxor to Abydos.
How far? It's 1 hour or
Dendera,
more than 1 hour?
Hour and a half drive to Dendera, and then hour and a half back. So the second way is a long day trip, like almost 12 hours from Luxor to go to Abydos, then Dendera, and back to Luxor. And the third way, which is I preferred, starting from Cairo, driving along the Nile Valley, to stop at Bani Hassan, to stop at Minya, spend the night in Tunal Gabal, visiting Tunal Gabal, and then going to Abydos, spending a night in Abydos, visiting the temple, then moving on to Dendera, and then ending in Luxor.
This is 12 hours.
And the best way, no, that will be like 2 days, at least. And 3 days, actually, 3 days. So the best way is sailing the Nile River from Cairo all the way to Luxor, which is still not happening.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Samir Abbass, Egyptologist and historian. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
I'm glad to be with you.